Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome to the Brickmania 2019 Year in Review video. As you can see, we have quite a collection of kits here. We also have a really cool video coming at the end of this little production that our very talented animation team put together, so you'll be able to see the complete lineup of 2019 kits brought to you by Brickmania. I think it was something like 95
95, so you're only looking, we have a bunch here. We brought some of the highlights, some of the bigger models out, but yeah, 95 models last year, and that wasn't a lot of little ones either.
Right.
These were all pretty significant, very...
As we can see.
Yeah, so this has been the year of the epic, large, crazy big models. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin here.
Well, so I'll clarify too, we are going to have Landon coming in a little bit later. We'll go over some of the minifigs from 2019 as well and just kind of cover the full range. But obviously 2019 was a huge year for Brickmania for multiple reasons. One, various innovations when it comes to the production of kits, talking about the custom printed muzzle brakes, the printed elements like the wheels and whatnot, but then also stuff like the F-22, the licensing, kind of bringing out some more official kits that actually have the brand names on it. So yeah, man, when you talk about where to start, I guess looking around, what do you think one of the earlier kits we have at least sitting in front of us is? It's got to be close to being the M113.
Right, probably
one of the earlier ones.
Abrams right there.
The Abrams?
Okay,
yeah,
that's, I mean, it's basically a relaunch of Cody's Abrams. We took off the Tusk M2A1, but we took off the Tusk and the Urban Combat Pack, all that stuff. So that kind of was like, we're going to launch this main battle tank series. And that was one of the key ones of the series. We did a whole bunch of modern main battle tanks, and we transitioned into Cold War main battle tanks later on in the year. So we have a few representing of each, but definitely the Abrams, the whole main battle tank. We did this basically the third release of every month last year had a new main battle tank. I started out, in all modern tanks, and then ended up, and the Abrams, for all I know, it could be 2018, but it did lead us into all of these tanks coming back.
Sure.
Actually, maybe it was the Tusk Abrams was the
right
2020.
with the sides.
Yeah, and then we redid it for just a standard release here. So, main battle tank series came out. I think we ended up with like 18 of them altogether.
It's quite a few.
The whole series, and much of 2019 was the Cold War series.
Right.
So, Centurion being the final Cold War, if not the final, one of the final ones we ended up doing.
And then we had the T-72, the T-64.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
This one, we had the Centurion, obviously the Abrams as well. Then we did the Patton. We had the M60. Goodness.
Yeah.
T-72.
T-72, T-64.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. It was just one release. Every month, a new Cold War tank. The Super Sherman, Israeli Super Sherman. So we were on a roll, but that was just a part of what we were doing. Yeah, I mean, there's so many innovations. We were doing some things commemorating different anniversaries, some things commemorating just like, hey, we're going to do a series of airplanes. Hey, we're going to do a series of helicopters. Hey, look, we have a license for Lockheed Martin. Let's do a bunch of Lockheed Martin stuff that we've wanted to do. So, yeah, a lot of milestones, a lot of really cool things that we've done. So.
Well, and if we break it down kind of by the order of things, I think this is a good one to start with just because of this. Because that kind of kicked off the creation of that next layer of detail through that custom creation of elements by Brickmania.
Right. So, I mean, there's a couple things going on there. We did this M113, and we did a whole bunch of series of add-on packs. And this Vulcan, this is the Vulcan anti-aircraft defense add-on pack for your M113. So we took the basic M113 kit, you threw away some parts or set them aside, and you rebuilt it as this one. This is a Vietnam era one. Our team 3D printed that barrel. We were originally going to have that made by Brick Arms, who volunteered to do it. And then as the process developed, he realized how much more complicated it would be. And 3D printing might be the answer. We were just getting into 3D printing because we did that S160 locomotive in 2018. That really pushed us into like having to learn how to do real precision 3D printing, and ended up culminating like, well, let's just do the barrels for the Vulcan. So it sort of forced us to take it to the next level, and that was our one of our first real experiences doing that. I think the actual AMX-13 was our first muzzle brake.
Oh, okay.
So that was our first like, let's get serious about doing. It's up there. Let's get serious about doing. I'll just pick it up. That might make things easier. About doing our first muzzle brake. So some sort of innovations that we have on these things. This muzzle brake here. Muzzle brake on here. The oscillating turret. We're kind of like started pushing the boundaries of what we can and cannot do. So this is like, of course, we do a lot of printing, a lot of stickers. We're experimenting, and we're finding processes that work. As you can see, the sticker rolling up here. we're learning. We're learning
Yes,
new
right.
materials. This is we're a small business, and everything we do is experimental. We don't have it, set industrial processes. We're just figuring this out as we go along.
And I like that you reference this too, because this and then transitioning into this is kind of one of the examples of that level of detail that you can achieve when you kind of refine that 3D printing. Because I mean, if you look closely at this, this isn't just like 3 barrels or some barrels with some rings around it. Like, there's a nice taper to it. You can completely see down the center of it. And then not only that, but we moved past that and actually created the Red Hot edition, which was literally blending different colors. And stuff like that is kind of an example of how Brickmania is constantly pushing to reinvent themselves and create new items. And I think that for a small company to constantly be achieving a level of detail that isn't set by another company beforehand, that is the innovation that really makes a Brickmania kit.
Well, and we predominantly use Lego pieces. So the core of our product is and always will be the Lego system. So we are, above all and else, we're huge fans of the Lego system, the Lego company, the system the Lego company produces. So in our mind, all of the accessories, all these custom 3D printed parts, the brick arms, the stuff produced by Brick Arms and Weapons, they are all add-ons to the core is the model. And what can we do to make the basic model a little bit better, a little bit more realistic, or fill in the gaps where previously we'd have to use our imagination. So we would do like a Vulcan cannon like that, but it would be like a Technic axle or something. It'd be like, it's approximate, but we're trying to make it one step a little bit more real without taking away from that Lego aesthetic. So.
Well, and I know I haven't been here super long, but one of the first things that struck me about Brickmania was the fact that the builds were so good that they could kind of blur the line between something that is like just a regular plastic model that you'd glue together versus something made with Lego bricks. And I think a great example of this is the Hollywood add-on pack for the EZ8 Sherman, and then also the Stuka sitting right next to it. Those are 2 models that are just kind of an excellent example of, like, especially for someone who maybe isn't like super skilled or doesn't know a ton about Lego, looking at something like that is really like, my goodness, is that Lego? Those are the kind of kits that you get that reaction.
Well, and the thing that we're trying to accomplish with these is like, it's all the structural parts are Lego. All of the, we don't fill in the gaps, so to speak, in the building system. We fill in the gaps like, okay, the little details, the gun barrels, like the Brick Arms making this nice tapered gun barrel for us. And that culminated in us actually making our own extra long barrels for the Super Shermans.
Right.
We're doing injection molding, we're doing 3D printing. We're working with people that are better than us at these things, and then some of it we're just learning on our own. So it's working out really well. The Hollywood add-on pack, as you mentioned, has a lot of innovation for us. We don't normally put that many stickers and then that many printed parts, but you have texture printed, regular printing, you have the stickers, all that stuff we're doing actually at Brickmania. And this isn't some factory. We're just using tools that anybody can get. And making things. We're just using, refining techniques and figuring out what works.
Well, and really at its core, it's just a bunch of trial and error and having people who are constantly willing to think outside the box and say, how can we continue to make this better? And as I said, we'll bring in Landon here later, but if you look at the evolution of just Brickmania figures in general and just kind of the cool stuff that we've been able to bring to the table in that level, you're now starting to really see some of that in the models as well. We talk about the deal with the Bovington Tank Museum and Tiger 131, and this is a good example of that when it comes to the custom created hat, and then also the printed road wheels, and just kind of the elements. Even the interior of this thing has custom printing inside it, and that's kind of something that I wouldn't say is necessarily new to Brickmania, but also is another level of kind of that premium kit.
Right. So, and that brings us back to a point where something that we've kind of achieved a new plateau in the level of detail that we're doing. We're also talking to the people that work on these things, people that have built these things. So, the Tank Museum over in Bovington in the UK actually has the original World War II era Tiger 131, and we worked with them to do an official release in conjunction with them. So that was a really nice new milestone. Like, hey, let's do something. It benefits the museum. A little bit of the proceeds from every one of these that we sell actually goes back to the museum to help them preserve the history.
Right.
Not just the Tiger 131, but they have a lot of vehicles on display, and it's a non-profit museum, and all these kind of donations really help. Likewise, we're able to work with Lockheed Martin. That definitely not a nonprofit, but stuff. They make cool stuff that behind the scenes protects us in our day-to-day lives. Is used by the U.S. military. safeguarding our nation,
Right.
And our people. So we've, in tribute to that, we've done the Raptor, the F-22 here. Likewise, we've been working with Sikorsky, doing a lot of their products. So we did the Pavlo last year. We did the Black Hawk, Black Hawk, and we did a CH-53 Super Stallion. Those are things that we did. These are all now in conjunction officially with Sikorsky. It's kind of cool because we get a little bit more recognition that we're doing something that's worthy of their name.
Well, and obviously Brickmania is no stranger to mega builds, but was 2019 kind of one of those pivotal years where we started to see builds like the F-22 and the SR-71 and even the Johnston, where we're starting to be able to make these not just as centerpieces for our stores, but something where you can literally offer what would be a museum display to people to purchase.
Previously, we would never, a kit over 1,000 pieces would happen maybe once in a blue moon, twice a year maybe. We'd have a larger kit, and in 2019 we did an enormous amount of them. The Raptor. We did the C-47. I mean, these are large kits. The Tomcat, we don't have a Tomcat with us, but the F-14 Tomcat, massive kit.
Right.
The Johnston, over 2,000 pieces. I mean, that's becoming a norm that maybe once a month we're doing one of these sort of larger than normal kits. Back in the old days, maybe Brickmania would do 50 kits a year, but most of them would be small. They would be similar in size to this PT right here. And we're kind of moving above and beyond that. Of course, we still put out kits like that. Sometimes we'll even put out collections. Like last year, we did the
Blitz Box,
the Blitz Box, which is actually 3 tanks, 3 guns, 6 guys. So that was kind of a neat. We were able to actually combine this. AMX-13. This is about the size of. In the olden days, that would be a major kit. Nowadays, we put something like, we look at that and go, hey, we need something else that week because we've achieved a certain level of capability and efficiency that we can do these things. And there's just, we're never going to run out of ideas. People keep saying, every time we do a video, you read the
please bring back this. Please make a new version of this.
Yeah, it's either bring it back or have you made this yet? And we have this list in our minds of things that we want to do. And some of these things that we're like, oh, it's too big, we'll never be able to do it. They're actually becoming a reality. Like this, the USS Johnston, which was actually spurred on by the U.S. Navy approached us and said, hey, we need a destroyer for a display. And like, yeah, we can do that. In order to maximize our efficiency, we actually made kit versions that were sale. But they're a little bit different than what the Navy got.
Right.
But I mean, it's basically the same ship.
Right.
It's just a kit version. The Navy got a display model.
So from a design standpoint, obviously it helps to have, Brickmania is now starting to really figure out their various departments. We have the UV printing, we have our custom created line, and obviously production and design. But so for you guys to be able to undertake building these larger models like this, what did you have to put in place to get to the point where you guys could turn out models like the SR-71 and the Johnston and the F-22 without pretty much having to put everything on hold to be able to create something like that, like it would have been when Brickmania was in its infancy? Well,
it's a lot of teamwork. So we used to be like every designer was on his own. You'd start the project and you're going to build this project and you're in charge of the prototyping, the design, everything from start of the model to the instruction book, and now we've split everything up, so we basically have a whole team of people working on it. So say I might design a model or Cody might design a model, and it will hand it off so that several people will have their hands in it. And last year we did have actually some really great builders joining the team, and that you'll have some names that you'll like John Canepa, Andrew Summers came and joined us for a while. We had other people in the team, so more than one designer really helps too. So.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and talking about just how far Brickmania has come in its 21 years, good thing to point to is kind of where it originally started. I know we took the trip to Germany that ultimately was that's what they were most excited to hear about, was kind of the start of everything with the blacksmith shop. But then you released the Bricksmith shop, which was kind of commemorative of where Brickmania had its roots.
So like all of the Brickmania did start out making castles, which is kind of funny, sitting on top of this bunker.
Yeah, right.
So that was always a dream of mine as a Brickmania, like, hey, let's make castles. Lego wasn't making castles at the time, so I started making them. And yeah, the first shop, the first kit I actually made as Brickmania was that blacksmith shop 20 years ago. Lego, of course, reissued it as a set in 2002, I believe. And then, of course, for the 20th anniversary, I did this little mini one, which opens up like the real thing, but the real thing was actually much bigger. It was full minifig scale.
Right there.
There's a box. You can compare the two sizes. But this is made a little few of these. They're actually hand numbered. They're not hand numbered. They're printed on there, but they're individually numbered, and has my signature on each one. So this, those were a limited edition thing. If you've been following, if you buy a lot from Lego, you will know that they have been making these little commemorative sets, like a mini scale version of a lot of their most popular sets. So that is exactly where that idea came from. So,
well, and so the last thing I want to touch on here too is, obviously we have gotten to a point now where we're turning out very impressive models on a monthly, if not weekly basis, but there also is kind of the flip side to that, which is we are still a small company, and then not only that, but like being a creative yourself, like you want to keep creating new stuff, and so that kind of speaks to, when Brickmania says limited edition, it's not really just a selling point. It is kind of it's an honest thing. Like these are very, very limited releases. We're
not mass producing anything. Everything that we do is handmade. And there's a certain urge to like, okay, let's forget about that because we want to move on to the next thing. And that's what we have to do. We only have so much production capacity. There is only so much Lego because we are using genuine Lego, which we cannot get from the Lego company directly. We do not partner directly with them. And that's fine. We're not asking for their help. It would be great, but I think that it's a completely different. They've got one business model, we've got another. We're basically doing what is considered, this is an art. So we're designing sets, limited run sets, and we do move on to the next one. We just, we can only produce so many boxes each week. And when something's not as popular or starts to sell out, we're like, okay, we're not going to make it anymore. We'll try to keep stuff in stock for a while, but I mean, there's literally not enough production schedules, not production time to do it all. Not enough bricks out there in the world.
Well, and I think a good example of that actually is this tank right here, because this is kind of an example of something that is, because of the color and because of the rarity of some of those parts just in their availability in general, like we may have wanted to be able to keep something like this in stock for as long as the demand was there, because there's still demand for this thing, but that's not really possible because
I challenge you to find enough of these wedges
exactly
anywhere in the world. That was in a set like 10 years ago. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and got a bunch of those. But it's the same way. I mean, it's just Lego doesn't produce bricks for us. We have to find them. And if we can't get them, I mean, that's another hindrance. That's another thing that's going to make something time out. Or even get more expensive over time. It's a law of supply and demand. As supply goes down, we have to pay more for the bricks. So,
exactly.
If you're wondering why we don't just keep producing until we can, it's like because we're going to drive up the price of all the parts in the world.
So when you combine the production capacity and just the abilities of a small, locally owned business, mixed with the fact that you're working with a medium that is in limited supply, and then not only that, but purchased through a third party, most of the time, then you understand some of what goes into a Brickmania kit, and that's not even touching on the hours it takes to design it, the various trial and error that goes into things like the custom printed muzzle brakes, or even just calibrating UV printers and making sure that stuff is where it needs to be. And so I think that's kind of one of those things, especially for someone like me who's new to what Brickmania is. You kind of see it, you say, that's awesome, it's expensive, why? You start to understand what goes into that.
And all of these bricks probably started out on the shelf of a Target or a Walmart somewhere as something completely different. So a Harry Potter set, or the latest space set or Lego movie set. That's where they come from. I mean, if you're wondering where we get our parts, they are literally bought off the store shelves. Somebody had to go through, spend all that time hand sorting them all out so we could have parts. It's not like we can just go order, hey, we need 50 of this, 5,000 of this, 10,000 of that, and just push a button and it just like magically appears. It's somebody somewhere has to put the work in to make it happen, and we are the sort of like the tip of the spear. It all comes together in our place at Brickmania.
Right. Well, and obviously what you've built here and what Brickmania has become now is a lot more than just a bunch of awesome models. There's also kind of everything that goes on behind the scenes, and I mean, we're tied up with over 30 employees now, or something around there.
Oh, we were like 50.
Yeah, right. So like there's a lot of people's entire livelihoods tied up into this, and it's a lot more than, you see something like this or like the F-22. What you don't see is everything that's behind that, and the people who help sort those bricks or purchase them or ship them or do any of that kind of stuff. And that's something that I think all of us at this company are very proud to be a part of.
Well, and we have 30-something people working in the warehouse. We do have the retail locations. We are which are basically like galleries. So, we can't just make these retail locations pop up everywhere. We just, it's not like we push a button, they appear. It's like a lot of hard work goes into them. So plan a road trip, go to your nearest Brickmania store. It's actually a lot of thought, a lot of work has been put into to make those stores look nice. And we will continue to keep upgrading them, adding more stuff, adding more displays. Our customers are great. We do touch a lot of people's lives. A lot of the operators of the actual vehicles we make recognize what we do, and recognize the historical importance of what we're doing. And we appreciate that, and we try to always give back, get people in the store, hey, let's talk about this stuff. And likewise, they've been sending us stuff. So we want to start displaying some of that stuff that they've been sent. Various tokens, various patches, flags, things like that have actually flown in, on missions, things like that. So we're like, hey, we want to display this. So we totally appreciate that. All that stuff will be out there in the public in front of stores, and we also will put historical artifacts in our various stores. Like to do games, these stores are like actually like a picture into the window of, a window, I guess, inside of what Brickmania is doing.
Well, and then you touch on stuff like the store events. Things like Micro Brick Battle and stuff, they're more than just a place to go buy product or even look at displays. Like now we're really making a conscientious effort to expand the amount of things that you can do when you come to a Brickmania store. And so, planning your trip around something like that, you get a lot more than just being able to browse the wall and look at some kits for a while. There's really a lot involved to do. And then I suppose in that same breath, talking about Micro Brick Battle and the evolution of that, I think we've got one of the version 3 rule books over there. Something that is another example of the way we created this thing and then have constantly been expanding and reinventing it,
updating it. So we have the Micro Brick Battle nights at our stores. That really came out of World War Brick. So if you don't know what World War Brick, if you start hearing about it and just kind of like, what's this World War Brick thing? So before we had stores, we basically we decided we wanted to have an event where people can come to our space, and that's exactly what World War Brick is. We're actually bringing it back in 2020. We haven't done a World War Brick since February 2017.
And that was Anaheim?
Anaheim, California. We did it for many years. I think the first one was in 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
And we're bringing it back this year. So that is like actual activities based around what Brickmania does. We love historical building. That's what we document. And we like to mix our building with activities, invite our friends, and that's basically what it is. It's just a giant gathering of military building enthusiasts. We have activities that would be totally slanted towards what you see, either building or historical things, or how can you improve your model building, how can you improve your mocks, seminars. We have key vendors that would actually have components that would actually help you achieve your goals.
So World War Brick 2020, June 12th through the 14th, I want to say.
Right, that's coming up. So that'll be watching next year's recap, and I'm sure we'll have a nice video about that. I think there is a 2017 recap on the World War Brick website. So if you want to see what we did in the past, go look at that. But we're quick, planning the 2021. It's at Brickmania's, not only in our GHQ store, but actually in our warehouse, which we haven't had open to the public in several years now. So this is going to be a cool time for behind the scenes look into a real behind the scenes look into Brickmania in our space.
Well, and my first World War Brick, so I'm crazy excited about that too. So I'm looking forward to be a part of that. Okay, so I think the last thing I wanted to touch on is just one of these because I think a lot of people who are super excited about military Lego building and all that kind of stuff, but maybe don't have the ability to get involved on a level like an F-22 or something like that. We still see the value in being able to build something super cool as long as you have either your own massive parts library or are able to acquire your own parts. Talk to me a little bit about what goes into creating a Brickmania instruction book.
Well, Brickmania instruction book is a collection of mostly discontinued Brickmania sets. So we're talking about limited edition sets. When they go out of production, it doesn't mean that the idea goes away or the demand goes away necessarily. So we kind of keep those things on the back burner, and we have some time in between designing sets. We will put out new books. We actually did 4 books in 2019. Each one is a collection of mostly discontinued models. It'll have the parts list, show you how what you need to make it. Have the stickers so you can make it just like the kit or close enough.
Right.
And then there's always a bonus model or something thrown in there. So usually it's 1 or 2. Some of them have several. And then there's add-on packs for something. So, for example, in this Great War book, there was a Liberty truck in there that we never released actually as a set.
Right.
And we made an add-on pack, so if you wanted to use some special 3D printed wheels, some of the fabric covers to make your truck complete, you don't have to, because you could build it in the book just with ordinary Lego parts too. So we like to give those extra features. In 2019, we actually did 4 full instruction books, which is the most we've ever done in a year as well. We will have some, more will be coming in the future. We don't have anything on the schedule right now because we're really in new kit mode.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we are designing. We're not really thinking about, okay, what we're going to do for the instruction book. Typically, we release those kind of things at the end of the year. 2019 was unusual that we released them steadily through the whole year, 4 instruction books, and then revamped the micro brick battle rules.
Right.
So in 2020, you'll be seeing a lot more of the micro brick battle stuff trickling out, game mats, new game pieces, new actual gaming challenges.
Air to ground.
Air to ground is a brand new thing. So the stuff that we've been sort of quietly working with and doing at shows, we've been doing it at events around the country the last couple years. Like, we're actually going to bring it home, World War Brick, do it in our stores, and then you could also play it at home. That's the
well, then, too, you talk about the books, there's just kind of the new expectation that's come with them too, because I think Overlord Bricks had something like 14 models in it or something, and like tanks, like full, not like
aircraft,
not of this size, but like of this size model going on in that. So
Blitzkrieg Bricks had the predecessor to the Stuka.
Right.
So this is the 2019 Stuka. There was this previous Stuka that Cody had made. That is actually in the Blitzkrieg Bricks book. So if you want your early war Stuka that's appropriate for 1940, it's in the book. So Blitzkrieg Bricks. Try to say that fast a bunch of times.
Yeah, no kidding.
We did Overlord Bricks, Blitzkrieg Bricks,
Great War
Volume 2, and the Pacific Volume 2. And of course we did the new revamped rule book for the Micro Brick Battle.
So quite a 2019 for Brickmania.
And Lando will be here talking completely about, or just going into the minifixes. There's just so much. I mean, this has been the year of Brickmania, the 20th anniversary. I mean, if you think about it, the year that this original kit came out, I did like 2 sets that year, maybe 4.
Sure.
One every 3 months. That's how long it took me to do all this. And now that we have a team doing it, we are much more efficient, and the models are so much better.
Obviously, a guy can dream, but did you ever think you'd really be able to sit here and appreciate this for what it's become?
I actually walked away from this in 2003. So I didn't want to do this as a job. I didn't think it was, it's work. This is no longer fun anymore. And I walked away from it, and it took a few years to realize that I had something really cool. And it took some people some convincing. Say, you got to come back and do that. Okay, you're right. I
Thank
screwed
goodness.
up. So yeah, and then here I am, like 80 hours a week. They got to pry me out of here, send me home at the end of the night. So.
But a heck of a product to show for it. So, all right, coming up next, we are going to have Landon in here. We're going to go over all of the minifigs from 2019, or at least some of the highlights, because I think there's too many to get to, especially if you include the kits. But we'll have him in here talking about kind of the process and the artwork, and then some more of the custom printed elements that come with that. All right, Brickmaniacs, so we covered some of the kits that we went through in 2019. Like I said, coming up at the end of this video, we're going to have a total rundown of everything that Brickmania came out with for the year 2019. But now I'm joined by Lando, and we're going to go over kind of the evolution of the Brickmania minifigs, starting kind of early on and then moving through the year of 2019. Obviously, this isn't everything we released.
No.
But quite a few of the highlights. Where do you want to start?
Okay. This is roughly in chronological order, roughly. And some of these are just prototypes. Maybe there's some stand-in figures here. I didn't have all the helmets. I don't know. People are taking helmets from me. I guess camouflage has been something I've been, designing and figuring out colors and how it works with the Lego base colors. What would be an earlier example? Let's start on this side. Navy deck crew. These were really awesome. Came out, we had like all the different colors of the guys. But as you can see, they are rocking those awesome woodland camo pants. And I believe that they're still wearing, like using that, just kind of a popular cargo pants. You know, you can commonly get that pattern, and it's probably like pretty stain resistant, and you don't really, it all blends in. But working with the Lego base color of that reddish brown, and then kind of playing off that to get the different color blotches in there. So it's been a kind of fun playing with color mixing.
Sure.
Using the base color to get awesome, accurate camouflage patterns.
Yeah, so you were telling me before the video too that the texture printing on their helmets does predate 2019.
Yeah.
But would you say 2019 was kind of the year that you really started to figure out that color shifting, and how to get the original base colors to actually match what you wanted to see historically, instead of just kind of trying to get close?
Oh, for sure. I'd say I think we landed on one of the closest olive drab colors, you know, that we've done before. This is actually starting out with a dark gray and doing a little bit of color shifting, and that's a really spot-on olive drab. That I was pretty pumped at that turn. I think it's also on the S-Tank guy, so you can see that's cool, different.
The Stank Commander.
Yes. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun, color mixing, and it's different than just like painting the color that you want directly on the minifigure.
Right.
This is actually working with you're still seeing a good percentage of the base color actually showing through, because ink is a little bit transparent actually.
So walk me through the process of, I know we do minifigs of the month now, but especially back when you were creating stuff that was just kind of like, you know, new figures almost every week. Walk me through the process of going from looking at a picture of the actual person or uniform to transitioning that to Lego, and then testing it on the UV printers, and then getting something that you're happy with. Because I mean, I know you don't come across it on YouTube, but you're a pretty particular guy when it comes to how the uniforms look compared to what they're supposed to look like in real life.
Yeah.
So how did you constantly push closer to getting that to be more accurate?
Obviously, finding as much historical photos as possible. We have as you can see, pretty awesome library behind us. And there's, even on staff, there's some really knowledgeable guys that just, you know, they'll point me in the right direction for some getting more accurate source information. As far as on the figures, I sketch as much as I can.
Okay.
Just in a little, just pen and paper. It's old-fashioned, but it speeds things up so much. The least amount of work on the computer actually can speed you up in a lot of cases.
Interesting.
Kind of counterintuitive, but doing a little bit of handwork ahead of time saves you so much time. So the sketches are incredibly rough, but they translate into helping me get the proportions right for all the different uniforms, figuring out how many buttons, how many pockets, where things go where.
Okay.
Go, whatever, you know.
Well, so once you've got your artwork on the computer, we've talked about in the past has been that, you know, rarely ever can you just send something through and then it prints out on the actual minifig looking like what the computer would be. So how did you refine your process for having to alter things on the web so that when they actually came out and physically printed, looked the way you wanted them to?
I pretty much, I don't really trust this computer screen because, you know, screens need to be calibrated. I mean, ideally every single day if you're really particular about it.
Right.
But colors just change over time on a computer screen, and even how the printers, like the ink, they need to calibrate their machines. There's so many different layers where inconsistencies can happen, and so it's kind of just trial and error. And if I've found a color that worked in the past, a lot of times, at least on my end, I can be consistent. Even though if on screen it might not be 100% the same every single time. It just screens do kind of fade over time.
Sure.
So just working from a known constant. So it's like, let's say I color mixed this olive drab pretty well. I can use those same color profiles to create
moving
future
forward
stuff. So
cool.
Just it's lots of trial and error, back and forth a ton with the guys in the print shop, which is nice because they're just the room over. So I'll go over there and, you know, touch base with them pretty often and see what's working, what's not, what needs to be shifted. So they're really particular. They got a really great eye for detail, and they love what they do, and they really care about it. So that's awesome to be able to work with people that also really are passionate about what they're doing. So
sweet. One of the other cool things that you notice about Brickmania figures is the simulated fabric textures. This guy, I think, is a really good example. Talk to me about like when you first were like, all right, I want to make this not just look like ink on a piece of plastic, but actually like this guy is wearing a shirt or wearing a specific set of pants.
Sure.
You know, how did you kind of refine that to not be over the top, but also be subtle enough to the point where people are like, oh yeah, he's wearing jeans.
Right, right. The more ink you put down on a minifigure, the more the rougher it's going to look, and the more it's just going to look overdone. So it's trying to figure out how little of any given design you can put onto the minifigure actually. So it's more a matter of deciding what not to put down than it is deciding what to put down. Because I could take a high resolution photograph and scale it down and print it on the minifigure, but it would just be a muddled mess. So it's really trying to decide, really with any, not just the fabric textures, but really with anything, it's about deciding what not to put on the minifigure more than what it is about putting on it. So in terms of these denim texture, seeing what actually will show up, deciding what scale, because that's obviously way bigger. Let's say those on the flipped up cuffs there. There's a little bit of like simulated denim texture, though that grain to that is way bigger than it would be in real life. So if you were to scale this up to human scale, each little mark on there is going to be like an inch or two across, but that's not what denim actually looks like. So it's almost a caricature of it.
Well, and how does something like that transition into then, like, some of the gear that these guys wear?
Sure.
Because obviously, I mean, there's a ton of detail packed into those plate carrier vests and stuff like that. How do you get those lines to come across so clean? Just kind of, how have you refined your process to make them look the way that they do now?
Sure. Let's see if I can get a good comparison here. So this is the LERP. I really love the LERP. I'm not actually super thrilled with my artwork because I think I overdid it on this guy.
Interesting.
I think the camo there's a lot of, it's a bit too busy. I had an earlier version that I might, if I choose to revisit this camouflage pattern, I might tone it down a little bit. A constant refining process. But this might be an example of where I try to cram as many things on there as possible, and maybe it muddled it together a little bit. So yeah, that's just an example of like the trial and error process where let's see if there's something good to compare it to. I mean, this is, he's also got stuff decked out on his torso, but there's not as many things. Like, if I wanted to, there's way more things that I could have put on there, like glow sticks or radio comms and all sorts of different wiring and stuff. But choosing to maybe selectively incorporate those is kind of where the challenge lies. So, yeah,
cool.
They're both the whole history behind any of these minifigures is that's one of the most interesting part for me. So even though it's like some minifigures, turned out better than others, I still think they're all incredibly interesting.
Well, I think one of the coolest things about it is how especially when you get one that, I mean, this is a good example where you can, and so is the Ranger, and actually really all of these that like have a full loadout of gear. It's like you can sit there and keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it, and you continually find more cool little things. And then obviously I know you. If you didn't know, if you don't have a Brickmania minifig, pick one up because he hides Easter eggs and all this stuff. Do. So when you get yours, take it apart and then put it back together because you see a lot that you miss. It's just kind of cool to see that detail kind of reveal itself the more you look at those things. So I think 2019 brought to Brickmania probably the most involved minifigure that you guys have ever put out. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, we strive for historical accuracy. Maybe others don't as much. And so we wanted to put out something that was iconic and also an actual representation of something that a lot of people are very passionate about, hence the undertaking of the astronaut.
I mean, Lego, their lunar lander set was really awesome. We thought that their minifigure was a little bit basic, I don't know, maybe. It was like a scuba diver outfit, so that's whatever. It was a good stand-in, I guess. But there's some like really iconic gear. I think this is, I wish I had this here. So it was the Navy Mark V suit, the pressure suit. It's kind of like a precursor to it's like a direct ancestor, I guess, in these space suits. So it's cool, like seeing the specific gear, and we just really wanted to capture all that on the minifigure. With it, and there's actual gear. You don't have to use generic stand-in, like sci-fi scuba gear. You can actually make the real things. So that was cool. Trying to working with the 3D design team to come up with. They came up with some awesome. So it's the PLSS support system. Yeah, PLS. It's like the life support system backpack. and then just really diving into exactly how this suit was built, and I mean, even trying to figure out where the different stitches go on a spacesuit. It's kind of funny, just gathering different, again, source imagery. I love that helmet. I think that initially we were debating on just using, like Lego has, which I don't know why they didn't use it, but they had that old school like mirror visor. It's like gold mirror, and it looked so cool. Back when that first came out.
Right. Quantity just wasn't there.
I thought we decided that we could. While that visor was kind of cool, the helmet it's just a basic like Lego motorcycle helmet. So we figured we can take it up a notch here. And then the inside is kind of cool. It's showing off the using like that pearl Lego head as part of simulating that visor. So it's actually pretty close to the scale that it would be in real life. So it's again, minifigure heads. They're really exaggerated. I think roughly 3 feet wide or something, which is kind of almost how big. I don't know. It's close to an actual helmet size. So.
Well, and is this a pretty good example of, like, you know, we talk about some of the accessories that we're starting to come out with that are, no one's ever created them for the Lego minifigure before, and so the only thing you have to go off of is what their proportions were to an actual human, but the Lego minifigure proportions don't exactly match up with a human, so how does one translate the gear from a human to something that doesn't really, but then you want it to still pass the eye test? So, I mean, like, what an undertaking.
Yeah, it's finding that middle ground. I guess a good example would be from our upcoming minifigure. But this is showing off that balance between, like, scale, human scale and, like, minifigure scale. If you look at that helmet there, in real life, it's if you're looking at the top down, in real life, it's a little bit more oval shaped than this, but not by much, where it, kind of like a human head from top down, is a bit more of an oval shape. Whereas a minifig head obviously is this perfect cylinder. So if you make the helmet this perfect cylinder, it's going to kind of look weird from different angles. So it's finding that middle ground in between minifigure proportions and human proportions. And you don't want to just scale down. This is kind of the brilliance with Brick Arms, actually. What he successfully did is that he figured out how to convert real life objects, all these weaponry, into the minifigure, the Lego universe. It's not just a scaled down gun. Anyone can do that. Anyone can take, and this is true for art as well, anybody can take a picture of something and scale it down and make it minifigure size, but it's figuring out the proportions, it's figuring out what looks like the Lego aesthetic is the hard part. Right,
because obviously, you know, a Car 98 isn't going to be actually the size of a person, but at the same time, when the Lego minifigure is holding it and you can show off some of that detail, it looks right. It just passes that eye test. Very cool. So obviously you've created a lot of really cool figures that, you know, are standalones and whatnot, but this was also kind of a year that you did a lot of stuff like the Hollywood add-on pack, where you got to create a variety of people. And you've touched on this before, you kind of like the playability of a crew pack, because you, while you're creating them, get to kind of give them their own backstories, personalities, and see how they kind of intermold together into one pack. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I do really like making crew packs, because it lets you, when you're just designing one minifigure, oftentimes you kind of have to cover a lot of bases at once. It's like, if this is like a tank crewman, you have to cover every single person inside of a tank. Whereas if you get to make the crew, you get to kind of play around and have more variety in that. And then also it does kind of create, like, you can kind of have your own characters with it, which is kind of, that's a fun part. It creates like a little bit of an association with, a connection with a minifigure, I guess. So.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, it is something that's fun to play with.
Yeah, and that's why we like them, because they're miniature figures. They're
little plastic men. Yeah.
It's like me, but small.
And with a 3 foot wide head.
Yeah, right.
And a flat, but
trapezoid.
Yes,
these minifigures are a weird shape. I don't know what's going on.
And yet, I mean, you can really see through. I mean, obviously Lego does it as well, but you can see through our figures as well that it is kind of well made to display artwork.
Yeah.
You know, like they are kind of a canvas.
Totally. More so than probably Lego was ever intending. I think initially it was like, what's a blocky figure that fits into this 1980? When was the minifigure made? Like the 80s, something like that?
It's been a while, that's for sure.
And you know, the initial designs were really basic, and I love the old minifigure artwork to death. The classic grin is still one of my favorites. Just beady eyes and whatever, it's funny. But it did create like a blank canvas, you're right.
Very cool. So I guess all of these figures, other than 2, have been available for purchase from Brickmania.com. But let's touch on the 2 that were not available on Brickmania.com because they were part of an outside project, one that you're pretty proud of.
Yeah, no, that was a really unique opportunity, I guess. So it's Third Man Records. We got in contact with them, and it just things kind of snowballed, and it turned into they wanted us to make a minifigure pack for the White Stripes. So, I mean, I remember watching that music video back when they debuted that. There's a really famous one. It's all Lego animation. So this is totally full circle. Like as a kid, I watched that music video. It's like that's really cool, you know. And then here we are making minifigures later of it.
Yeah, pretty sweet to have a hand in. You know, something like this, where it's not military, but there's a ton going on. You know, how do you kind of? I mean, do you just treat it like a uniform?
I guess, yeah. So these are kind of cool, like sequin or button outfit. They're made with like a bunch of buttons sewn onto it. And again, it's picking out how densely you want to pack the detail on there. Because in real life, this suit has 100 times as many buttons on it. But you know, I'm not going to be able to fit that all into a minifigure, and it still comes across legibly like button work. So yeah, it's finding that balance.
Very cool. Do you know if they're still available?
If they are, you got to be on the Vault Club on Third Man Records. The Vault, like
Very exclusive.
I didn't even, you know, this is just the prototype stuff. So. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I guess the last thing I want to touch on is just what is some of the stuff you want to see in 2020? What does this new year hold? And what are you excited for?
I think we're off to a good start so far, especially with these minifigures of the month. People have been loving it, so just keep I'm excited to keep pushing the envelope, I guess. Doing things that nobody's ever done before, and tackling subjects that maybe aren't as popular, but are like, incredibly interesting. There's so much history out there. World War II is awesome. That's our staple. That's like our favorite. But there's so many things out there that would be exciting to try and make a minifigure rendition. So, yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, I think all of us are, fans of your work and looking forward to seeing what new stuff we can create in 2020. And considering this guy here, I think we've started off the new year with a bang. And let's see what it holds.
Yeah, we'll see. There's tough shoes to fill with the next minifigure, so we'll see. This guy turned out great. So, yeah.
Very cool.
There is a review for that one. So
yes, up online now. And we are going to have coming up next. We'll check back in with Dan real quick. And then we will take a look at all of the kits that Brickmania has released for the year of 2019. Okay, so that was cool to see. Obviously, this is quite the spread of models we have here, and yet it is not everything that Brickmania released in 2019, but never fear, because we have the complete lineup of everything Brickmania released in 2019 coming up to you right now.